Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Cristi Christensen is a global embodiment leader whose mission is to empower women and expand their definitions of yoga and well-being. She's the creator of Soulfire, a unique style of yoga that incorporates dance, meditation, and mudra practices to awaken and empower. Additionally, she's the co-founder of the Asia-based Kirana Yoga School and US-based Deep Exhale, a transformational experience merging the worlds of breath, music, and movement. Cristi's first book, Chakra Rituals, Awakening the Wild Woman Within, written in 2021, is a self-help guide that helps make the ancient science of chakras accessible through a 7-week step-by-step program. For 10 years, Cristi served as the director of the internationally renowned Exhale Center for Sacred Movement in Venice, California. Cristi's leadership corresponded with the studio's rise to fame as it became the epicenter of yoga and set the foundation for yoga in the Western world. She's taught in 20 countries around the globe to tens of thousands of women. Cristi Christensen, it's an honor to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. So nice to meet you, Casey.
It's absolutely awesome to meet you. That's quite the intro. You've done a lot of things, and that says nothing about your first passion, which was jumping off of very tall platforms. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, in my former life, I was a little crazy. I used to jump off of a 33-foot platform, doing as many flips as possible, and then trying to enter the water with as little splash as possible.
Nope to all of that. Yesterday, I had to trim a tree, and I got onto my ladder, maybe like 5 feet off the ground, and I hated every second of it. So jumping off a 33-foot platform does not sound fun. How did you first get into that?
I was a gymnast first. And that was actually my first love. But when I was 14, I had a pretty major accident, and I ended up in the hospital. I ended up in a back brace, and I compression fractured my spine. And my parents were like, "You're done. We're not dealing with this. You're too young. You have your whole life ahead of you." And I was quite devastated. And through about a year of recovering, I would go to the gym and visit my coach and my teammates. And my coach was actually the one that was like, "Okay, well, if your parents won't let you come back to gymnastics, why don't you try diving? Maybe the water will be, easier on your body." So I marched home and was like, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a diver." And ironically, that set a whole nother life path for me, because where I lived at the time was Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and there were no facilities. So I ended up actually moving away from home at 15 to go train and chase this next Olympic endeavor.
Wow. That's crazy. I've heard you talk about this. I never really considered this, but how fast are you traveling by the time you hit the water?
They say 30 miles an hour. 30 miles an hour. Yeah. They did at the Olympics this summer, they did this, almost like a meme. And it was like the height of a giraffe. And then it was like, this is how you're traveling this far at this velocity at 30 miles an hour, and water is no longer soft, but it feels like hitting the concrete.
Wow. That's
and
crazy.
We're like, and these people are doing this. Why?
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, we have the Olympic training facility here, and so they have ski jumping, and they can do practice for aerials and ski jumping. But even then, there's the like I don't know what you call them, but it kind of agitates the water, so there's a lot of bubbles, and it helps to kind of soften things up. Why don't they use that in Olympic diving?
They use it when you're at some training facilities. They do have it. It's called a bubble machine. And when you're learning a new dive, they put it on so that it breaks your fall when you're just in case, because if you go in perfectly, right, it still can hurt. But if you go in a little on your belly, a little on your back, like you could end up being bruised head to toe, right? Or much worse, having a collapsed lung or breaking a rib. So they use the bubble machine to break the fall so that because you're already going to be nervous enough, right? When you're learning something new. And it's like kind of like in gymnastics, you would do something into the foam pit, right? As a safe way of like, okay, I can do this. And that's what they use the bubble machine for. But for competition reasons, there'd be no way to get in that water with no splash without, with those bubbles on.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good point. I know you were kind of chronically injured and had a lot of back issues, but were you ever like acutely injured?
Well, so what happened when I was 14 was when I did the first compression fracture. And then I had a myriad of other, just injuries that happen from training and competing at that level. I tore many things and detached many things and broke some bones, but it was really the back that was the chronic thing that I ended up fracturing it 3 times and destroying the disc.
Wow.
And that was the 3rd time was what ended my career. And I just assumed I was going to be living in pain the rest of my life. And I was told by doctors at 24 that I would be walking with a cane by the time I was 30, because that was how much damage I had done.
Wow.
But I'm 45 right now, and I can still do a handstand, and I'm not diving off the 10-meter platform, that's for sure.
That's amazing.
I can pretty much do everything I want to do, as long as I stay away from things that are, heavy, compressing. Right. So if I wanted to take up marathon running, that would not be good for me. But the good news is I don't enjoy running.
Perfect. I've seen you rip on your beach cruiser in California. That we can always go ride a bike. That's way better anyway.
Exactly. Right.
Wow.
I can ride a bike. I can put on some rollerblades. I can
Perfect.
get on a scooter.
Way better than running. Wow. Well, that's amazing. So how did you end up finding yoga?
Really through the devastation of my career, my life plan for myself going away. I think anybody out there who has been, a competitive athlete, whether it was training for the Olympics or trying to turn pro in your sport, and you not being done on your own terms, and that had been your life for so long, it had become your identity. Going to the Olympics for me was the only dream I had for myself. And it was everything I did was so wrapped up into that. When that dream did not come true, my life and world came crashing down because I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't even know what else I liked doing or what else I wanted to do. And I felt like a failure. So I was dealing with, and then of course, being in extreme pain and all, to put it to boot, I started dealing with some really massive anxiety and depression. And a friend of mine actually took me to a yoga class. She was like, "Oh, I know you're really into fitness, but I think you should try yoga." And this is, back in like 2003, 2002, where yoga wasn't cool or mainstream like it is now. It's like the easiest way to say it, I think. So I was like, I don't know about this yoga thing. And then literally like days later, I believe it was Madonna was on the cover of Time magazine
Wow.
in like a crazy yoga pose, and her body was shredded. And I remember thinking, okay, if yoga's good enough for Madonna, I guess it could be good enough for me. Let me give it a try.
Wow. Wow.
And that's how it started. It wasn't overnight. I fell in love with it. It wasn't, it changed my life overnight, but that was the first step and the first curiosity that got it ignited in me. And it's been quite a 20-year journey since then.
I love that you use the word ignited. I think that's a great way to describe it. Was it, kind of the typical thing where you went to yoga for like the physical, or maybe this can be good for my flexibility, but you start to realize after a few classes, like this is, yes, there's some physical benefit, but this is helping me mentally, emotionally, so much more than I think most people expect.
Oh my goodness. So again, back at that time, I didn't know, like, this is how much I didn't know about yoga. I didn't know that it had any other benefit. Like, I thought it was just another form of exercise, but, it was more based on flexibility. I didn't know, I knew nothing. I didn't know there was something spiritual about it or that could help anything. Right. So that's what actually, you said it so perfectly. It was really what ignited that curiosity was, first and foremost, it was the attention to the breath. With every single modality of exercise and training I had done in 20 years, like basically from the time I was 2 on, I've done everything. We did every kind of training and gymnastics and diving and cross training. And there was never an attention of breath by breath movement. Like inhale, reach your arms up, exhale, fold forward, inhale, step your right foot forward, exhale this. And over the course of 90 minutes, it put me in, I think the best way to say it was almost like a hypnotic trance, but it all became this like moving meditation that was guided by the breath. I didn't have this language, of course, at the time, but that's what I took away from it more than anything. And again, I didn't have this language either, but something happened to my nervous system because, like I said, I was dealing with quite a bit of anxiety at the time and it was really uncomfortable. And I remember after that first class, my nervous system what had happened is my nervous system had downregulated from that slow, deep, repetitive breath with that, purposeful attention on it from movement to movement, that it was like, oh, I feel a little bit more like myself. Like the part of me that I thought was gone with that injury of my back and with that part of my life being over, that part, like the Cristi of who I thought was dead. And after that first class, I was like, oh, there she is. Like there was that essence of me that was revealed. And it was that I was like, I don't know what just happened. Like, I can't even tell you what movements we did. I don't remember that, but I really remember. And that's what kept me continuing to go. And I was actually talking to an old friend yesterday that I hadn't seen since this, it's ironic, since this time of my life when I had the injury. And he was asking me about yoga. And I said, the funny thing is, I don't do yoga anymore for the physical benefits. I am damn lucky it has them, right? It's great that it's good for my body and it helps with all the aches and pains and creates more space. And it just makes my body feel good. And it builds bone density and muscle density and all those great things we need as we age. But that's actually not why I do it. I do it for the mental and the emotional and the spiritual benefits. And honestly, this might sound crazy, but it helps me continue again and again and again, heal my relationship with my body and my relationship with who I am, and to love myself and accept myself. And then therefore I can love and accept everybody else in the world as well.
Wow. That is so beautifully stated. There's so many different things we can unpack there. We could talk for hours and hours and hours about breath work. I think it is so incredibly amazing and restorative. And you're right. Like, when we were coming up as kids, nobody talked about it, but hopefully this next generation will get to experience that a little bit more, because it is so transformational. When you catch yourself just calmly nose breathing through a stressful situation, it's so calming. You're activating that parasympathetic nervous system and just kind of, dealing with things. When did you start to notice that your yoga practice was really helping with that loss of identity that you talked about? Because that's a really scary thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, I kind of describe my like yoga journey as like a reawakening, because I felt so dead. I felt so dead inside. I felt the joy and like I was so passionate and I had so much joy around this and so much drive, and all of those things were just gone. And it was just kind of like, if we say that first class was this little spark that like, and it was the tiniest of sparks that got ignited, but then these like little ambers, started to like burn in the coals. And I would say as my anxiety started to get under control and I started to enjoy, I really first started to really enjoy my body in a different way, to be honest. Training so hard for so long, I really abused my body through pushing it to the limits, of course, but also, being in sports where you're judged on perfection and you're basically naked, with a tiny little swimsuit on. I struggled with also eating disorders and I abused my body that way. So I think this first thing that happened was like this relationship changing with my body and coming into an acceptance there. And then as I was feeling comfortable in my own skin, that like created almost like the foundation for me to like be opened into these other things that were happening, because the truth was like my first love was movement. My mom was a dancer. She had me dancing by the time I could walk, and that led to acrobatics, which led to gymnastics, with the gymnastics led to the diving. And so my first real love was this love of movement, this love of expression through the body. And as I was breathing and doing yoga in this conscious way, it wasn't about performing. It wasn't about achieving a goal. It was actually being in the joy of the body. And I really believe it was, through that, I started wanting to help other people, like the first thing I did before, I didn't teach, I resisted teaching yoga for quite some time, but I was doing, I was doing personal training in people's homes. And I was, part of my recovery was I got really into Pilates, really to work on, strengthening, continue to maintain that strength in the core as my back was healing. And so I was also teaching Pilates at the time. And then I got hired by basically a wellness center. So it was interesting that my past really still did, even though it was in a completely different way, informed my present and my future.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting. I think so often we're trying to run away from the physical, body versus just being in the physical body and actually like moving with it. It's really cool that you've been able to bridge those gaps. When did you start to learn about chakras?
I was so this is so parlays into my very early, I feel I was very lucky. I would say within my first 10 yoga classes, I got introduced back to the chakras.
Wow.
And I really actually credit that introduction to what really, really stoked the curiosity, and maybe from that ignition into a full flame. And it wasn't even like I even understood what they were for a very long time. But the way that again, we go back to this place that I'm feeling dead inside. I'm feeling detached. I don't feel like I'm part of anything. I feel like that passion and juice for life is not present. And then I get introduced to these colorful, dynamic wheels of energy and light and power. And as the teacher was talking about them, I could actually visualize them. And visualizing them as they're represented by all the different colors of the rainbows. There's the red, and then the vibrant orange, and the gold, and the green, and the blue, and the purple, and the violet. And as she's like describing these different levels of consciousness, and I probably didn't even understand what that meant at the time, like I was like, oh my gosh, this is inside of me. Like I could buy into the idea that all of this power and energy and color was in my body. And I feel like from that first introduction there, that again was that another little amber got ignited of curiosity, but something woke up in me. And I feel like it was like the engine turned on, that I was like, oh, I really talk about it as like this return of aliveness.
Wow. Well, you mentioned colors and colorful. I am sitting next to your book, which is absolutely beautiful. And you did such an amazing job of bringing that color into print form. It's really like visually so cool to look at, and all the different sections have, all the different colors relating to those chakras. So,
and that's why I wanted, even if you didn't read the book and you just saw it, for it to ignite something in you. For like you to even receive that little blast of energy, or that little blast of hope, or that little blast of whatever it is that you might need. Like that was the idea, because for me, the chakras are so much, they're super deep and super intense, but they're also about joy and about light and about the whole human process and everything that we go through. And, they're really this map to remembering like the essence of who we are.
Well, you succeeded at that. Let's just say that.
Thank you.
It's a very beautiful and visually stimulating book. Tell us a little bit about what a chakra is, and kind of that idea where that came from. And how they work inside our body. Great.
So first of all, I didn't make up the chakras, just to be super clear. They come from ancient India, and the dates of how far these systems go back is sometimes unclear, because there wasn't it was an oral tradition, right? And it wasn't until much later that things started getting written down. But we could just, for argument's sake, say about 4,000 years ago that the ancient rishis and the seekers and the mystics, were meditating in caves for, hours and hours and who knows how long, and coming into these altered state of consciousness and being able to tune into the body and map out this wildly powerful map of healing, of transformation and awakening. And as far as I'm concerned, the chakras govern every facet of life. And they govern it not just from the physical perspective, but the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual perspective. So in the most basic way to describe chakras is as energy, right? As energy centers. Now, everything in the universe, right, is energy. Science proves this, right? It's just vibrating at different frequencies, densities, etc. And there's two kinds of energy. We have the physical energy, like we could say, or the physical body, right? Like we can touch our arms. I can touch the cup that my hot water is holding in, right? This is the physical energy, the physical body. And then we have subtle body or subtle energy. And the chakras operate in the subtle body and are called subtle energy. And what is subtle? Subtle means that which is most delicate, that which is most refined. That is what is almost imperceptible, right? A great example of subtle energy would be the air that we're breathing, right? We can't touch it. We can't grasp it. We can't bottle it and save it for later, technically, right? But we don't deny that it's there. Okay. So what's happening in the subtle impacts the physical, so that everything in the subtle body impacts and affects directly the physical body. So I know that was kind of a lot. Another way we can think about the chakras, as I sort of pointed to a moment ago, is, so we talk about them as energy centers, or wheels, or discs, or even vortexes, you could say, of spinning, right? They're spinning, they're in motion. What does a wheel do? We want the wheel to be moving smoothly, right? So we have this nice smooth ride, we could say, through life. And each chakra has its own, what I like to say, superpower. It has its own consciousness, its own intelligence. There's 7 main ones in the body that run from the base of the pelvis all the way up to the crown of the head. And even though they're stacked vertically, that there's no hierarchy amongst them. One is not more important than the other. Like I said a moment ago, each one has its own intelligence, right? It governs a certain part of the body. It governs a certain part of your psychology. It governs a different aspect of your consciousness, a different aspect even of how you could relate to spirit. It relates to different glands in the body, different elements, different senses. We can continue to map them on many, many, many different aspects of life and existence. I think I just said a mouthful.
No, that's great. That's a really good explanation. I was hoping that you would kind of take us through, each one of the chakras and what they represent, and ways that we can embrace, those chakras, and how we can get stuck in them as well.
Yes, absolutely. So, just for simplicity reason, or not for simplicity reason, just for order and logic, we'll start at the bottom and go up. So the first chakra is basically, you're sitting on it. If you're sitting down, it's at the physical location in the body is the very base of the pelvis, or the perineum. And this is called our root chakra, or Muladhara. And Mula means root, and Dhara means foundation. And this is related to the element of earth. It's all about coming home to our bodies, healing the physical connection we have to our own bodies, so that we can hold all the energy that we are. So we're setting the foundation for this colorful, dynamic journey that we are going on. So what do we have to look at? We have to look at our physical health, our vitality. We have to look at our root relationships with our families, our root or primary relationships with our family, our parents, family of choice and origin. This is also our relationship to the earth itself. So how do we treat the earth? How do we connect into the earth? And then some of the aspects that we deal with here beyond what I've just mentioned is it's how do I stay grounded, right? How can I be present? How can I mitigate my anxiety enough so I can be in the here and now? So my roots can run down deep, and I can be strong and solid and supple just like a tree.
Mm.
The emotion here we run into that tends to be the most problematic is fear. And if you think of that from, the fight, that's the most, we could say fear is our most primal emotion. And what are we talking about at this root level? It's that foundation. It is our primal instincts. It is our primal intelligence. So there's a little snapshot into the first chakra.
I love that.
Any
Is it more of like
before I go on?
No, yeah. Is it more of a masculine type of energy?
From my perspective, no.
Gotcha.
For me, from my perspective and from my studies, the chakras are pure Shakti, and Shakti is the creative feminine, and feminine doesn't necessarily mean female, right? Feminine force, but I don't look at the chakras as masculine or feminine. I look at them as different qualities of life. Gotcha. Of different qualities of the life force. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally does. Thank you for clarifying.
Because then we get caught in the binary of this or that. It's like, think of each one as a different expression of the life force.
Gotcha. I love that. That's great. It's so hard in 2021 to talk about gender. Really tough
talk about
a
lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Believe me, I'm still learning too in so many ways. But
we're figuring it out.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
awesome.
Exactly,
so that was a really good explanation. Okay. So next one up would be...
Yes, our second chakra, which we go from that rooted, grounded support of the earth, and now we move into the element of water and the element of flow and flexibility and creativity and creation itself. This is called the Swahisthana chakra, or the second chakra. And swad means self, and swara means sweetness. So this is the chakra where we want to start to taste the sweetness of life. So it's about pleasure and desire and sensuality and our sacred sexuality. This is the place in which we actually create life, right? Whether it's through making a child or making a podcast or writing this book or whatever it might be. This is where that creation process really begins. And it is also the flow of our emotions. So emotional intelligence here is the big one. If we go from the physical body being kind of like the main anchor in the first chakra, the second here is really that emotional body.
I love that. And what's the color that's associated with this one?
The color is orange. And what's really interesting about how the colors are mapped, it goes in terms of density of vibration. So if we take the scale of the rainbow, red is the densest color, is the heaviest vibration, as so is the energy of earth, correct? And then as we start to move up, the frequency of color goes up and up and up as the chakras follow that same map, going from the most dense to the most ethereal.
Wow. Interesting. I knew there was a reason for the colors, but I never put those things together. That's really interesting.
Yeah. It's not, because some people are like, it's all made up. And I'm like, no, it's actually not.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
And then if we move to the third chakra, and the third chakra is located in our solar plexus. And that's the space kind of between the navel and the sternum. And this is our power center. This is our confidence. This is our courage. This is our self-esteem. This is that energy that gets us up out of bed in the morning and makes us actually go out and do something. The element is fire. So the first two chakras follow that path of least resistance, that downward flow, right? Water follows the path of how the earth kind of holds it. And now fire shifts the energy and it moves it upward. It's an igniting force. It's all about transformation and power and empowerment and digestion. So even on like the simplest level, or not a simple level, but of digesting our food, right? Having the fire to digest our food, having the fire to digest, the life experiences. And then the Sanskrit name here is manipura. And mani means jewel, and pura means the place. So this is the place within you that is this sacred jewel, this sacred fire that is just wanting to blaze and for you to really shine bright. Like I have to say, shine bright like a diamond.
I that.
Color's gold.
Perfect. Wow. And so the next one up would be the heart center. Is that right?
Heart center. Yes. Everybody loves the heart center. The color here, you might take your hand to your heart, make little circles. That's what I'm doing, at least. The color here is green. The name is anahata. And ana means not, and hata means beaten. So actually, the direct translation of anahata is not beaten or not struck or not wounded. And what's really fascinating about that is, what does the heart actually do? It beats, it breaks, right? It gets wounded again and again and again. And what my teacher, Dr. Lauren Roche, taught me was that actual definition is teaching us that there's actually not one heart, but there's two. There's the physical heart, or the human heart as we know it, right? That's beating, right? We can put our hand on our chest and actually feel it right now. And that part of ourself that yearns to feel love or it aches from whatever may have happened in our life, and it gets wounded and beaten up again and again. And then there's the spiritual heart, which is eternal and it never dies. So what it speaks to is that there's a place within us, within the anahata, that we can return to again and again and again for deep healing, for deep nourishment, whenever that physical side of our heart or that human heart gets wounded. And that's how we can be healed and to live another day. This is the chakra of love in all its forms. And the element is air. So we talk about the breath work. We talk about the power of the breath, right? Breathing in the breath of life, breathing in the breath of love, breathing in the breath of spirit, and the power that has on all of our faculties and all of our life.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I feel like you had a question about that.
I don't know if I do. That was really well explained.
Okay, great.
I am very curious. I'm really curious about the next one. This was several years ago, but I had a Reiki session done where they told me that this was an area of concern for myself. The throat itself. And it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. I had a ton of resistance to starting this podcast. And a big reason why I was resisting it is I didn't think I had a voice. I didn't think I had a story to tell that somebody else hadn't already told. So I'm curious to learn about this one.
Oh, I love it. That's like the perfect throat chakra start right there. So the fifth chakra, or throat chakra, is right in the center of your throat, and the color is blue. Like, think about like the most open, big sky blue. Those days where there's not a cloud on the sky, and the sky just looks boundless and spacious. The name is Vishuddha or Vishuddhi, and it means to basically, like the definition of it, it means to purify the poison that lives in our system so that we can come into full expression, that we can actually bring the inside out and show the world who we uniquely are. Because if you think about it, this is the first place that we can actually, out of all these centers, that we can actually emote and express out fully and completely. It's through our voice. It's through our choice of words and the impact that they make. Now, one of the ways, and this is what sounded like maybe that came up for you, one of the ways that our throat chakra can, there's many, get shut down is through jealousy, through comparison, through not being able to see the uniqueness of what our gifts are, right? Being able to see the magic of who we are. Other ways it gets shut down is maybe when you were young, you were just told to shut up enough times that you believed your words didn't matter, or you asked a question in school and you were humiliated. Or other people grow up in cultures or in families where the voice of a woman is not valued, or the voice of the gay man is not valued, or whatever it might be, right? So there's so many different reasons. And then probably the biggest one is any kind of trauma or abuse. And that could be physical abuse. It could be sexual abuse. It could be emotional abuse. Certainly could be verbal abuse, right? We'll shut down our throat. And we will swallow our words. We'll get that knot in our throat. You might even lose your voice. You might even think your words don't matter. But if we have the support of the journey that we've already traveled today of these first 4 chakras below them, right? If we're grounded and we're connected and we're stable and we're strong, and we can be in touch with actually how we feel. And then the fires are blazing and we have the courage, right, to stand up, right? So we're coming from this grounded place, and then we're opening up through the breath of the heart. And then we can move up into the throat to actually be able to speak our truth, whatever that might be.
Wow. Wow. That's very well explained. Really amazing. It's amazing how they all tie together so beautifully.
Yeah. So the difficult part about teaching on the chakras sometimes is, we have to look at them through the lens of one at a time to gain understanding. But in reality, just like, we can examine the heart, right? The physical heart, and learn all about what it does, but it doesn't work by itself, right? Everything is with the chakras, I say, they're all singing and dancing to each other. So they're all impacting each other. It's like there's a party going on, and we want to make sure, right, everybody's invited to the party, and all those wheels are spinning and dancing. We got everybody online.
I love that. That's a great way to think about it. Wow. Okay, so that takes us up to is it the third eye?
Third eye, yes, the brow center. The name here is the Ajna Chakra, or the Ajna doorway. And this is the home of our intuition. This is the home of that deep wisdom, right? To be able to, see inside and trust that inner knowing of just when you know that you know, and you don't even know why you know. This is also the center of our dreams, right? Being able to dream bigger and wilder and imagine like all the different possibilities. And this is a place too where we're now starting to move like out of the physical body, right? We're up in the head, that we're connecting to the magic and the mystery, right? That is beyond what the 2 eyes can see.
I love that. What is
the color? Is purple.
Purple.
The color is purple, or indigo, which is just like a really deep purple.
Gotcha.
And when people talk about, the sixth sense, like this is what we're talking about. It's like closing the 2 eyes so the third eye, can really see. And this is where we really are dissolving any of, the binaries of okay, it's not either or, it's whoa. Wow. Outside of the box. And from the mental standpoint, it's like outside of the box thinking, like seeing more possibilities. Oh no, that's not a closed door. This is just, I'm being rerouted to find a whole new creation of this life plan or this life moment, whatever it might be.
I see. Interesting. Wow. So that takes us to the very last one.
That takes us all the way up to the crown of the head, which is known as the crown chakra, or Sahasrara. The crown chakra rolls off the tongue a little easier. And this one, some people say the color is white because white contains all the shades of the rainbow. Some people say they visualize as a rainbow, or that the highest frequency of light, I guess, is the violet. That's like that really almost like pinky violet color. So I tell people whatever resonates with them, you just go to that. This is really our access point to the divine, to higher consciousness, to higher self, to the cosmos. But kind of going into that place of that universal source that surrounds and connects us all, that goes by many, many different names. This is divine grace. It is divine gratitude. It is divine joy. And the real remembrance here is that we are not separate from, but we are one with all things. We are one with the sun. We are one with the stars, right? That the intelligence that is running the entire universe is also running our bodies. And the visual that comes with this chakra is this 1,000-petaled lotus flower. And in yoga, 1,000 is the number for the infinite. So think of this infinite unfolding of petals, right? So this infinite unfolding of consciousness, so that we're just awakening to higher and higher levels of consciousness, that it is endless. And just like the sun would be soaking up, just like a flower would soak up the rays of the sun, we're soaking up the rays of the divine. And then we're drinking it in. And it comes down through the stalk, and the stalk comes down through the third eye, and it comes down through the throat, and it continues down through the heart, the solar plexus, the low belly, all the way back down into the root. And the stalk continues to grow all the way back down to the earth. And this is how we create this bridge from heaven to earth. And we remember that there's nothing within us that is not touched by the divine.
Wow. Cristi, that was an amazing explanation of all the different chakras. Thank you so very much for going in such detail with all of them. That was a really wonderful way to get to know them better and understand them so much more. And like you said, like all of them kind of dancing around together, how they interplay with each other. Like it is very, very interesting. So when somebody opens up your book, the format is, it's a 7-week kind of course. You're doing something every single one of the 7 days. It's very practical. It's not like read about the chakra and now you understand it and go about your business.
Yeah.
Like you have to do things. What can people expect as they're going through their week?
Well, the first thing I just have to say is anything and when we're talking about transformation, we're talking about growth, and we're talking empowerment, we cannot just read about it, right? It cannot just stay in theory, right? We actually have to take action and do something. So that's why I designed the book this way, because if it just stays in the mind, nothing's going to happen, right? Just like if you could talk about like, I'm going to think about getting a 6-pack, but if you never go to the gym, probably not going to get it, right? It's the same thing when we're talking about transforming our energy. So the way that the book is mapped out is we have 1 full week, or if you do the book in the way it's designed, of course, you could take 1 week, 1 month, 1 year for each chakra if you prefer, but 1 week for each chakra for you to really start to build an intimate connection with this particular energy. And I give you a variety of different tools, or what I call rituals, so you can have different ways of engaging. And some of them you might love, and some of them might bring up resistance. And there's just going to be, we're all going to have different access points of what works for us. So day 1 is you're going to read the introductory part of the chapter, and you're going to create a little altar or sacred space in your home that becomes a visual depiction of the energy in which we're working with. And then day 2, we move into a mudra practice, which is the yoga for the hands. And this is one of my favorite practices to share because anyone can do it. And it's so potent and it's so powerful. And it just brings you into a beautiful space. And you can use these mudras at any time, anywhere in your life. Day 3, we move into a breath practice, right? We've already touched on the importance of breath work to activate and open us up. And there's a particular breath practice for each chakra. On day 4, we move into what I call the body prayers. And for you yogis out there, this is like a salutation, right, to each of the chakras. So you'll go through a short sequence in this place of connecting again to this energy that we are trying to activate and enliven. Day 5, we move into a meditation practice. Day 6, we move into something that I call an embodiment ritual. And those kind of vary in scope from chapter to chapter. So you're going to have to just trust me on those. And they're really fantastic. And also interspersed in all those days, I offer a wide variety of different writing contemplations for you. Again, you get to decide how deep you want to go on this journey. But there's going to be a lot of questions there that get you to really explore what this relationship is and where you might need to do different kinds of work. And they're really powerful and really healing. And then day 7 is your kind of integration day. So if you took a day off during the week, you can, do whatever you missed that day. Or if there's a practice that you just loved, you can go back and do that. Or you can just put the book away for a day and rest and not have to worry about it. And For those of you listening that are like, wow, that sounds like a big commitment, no, the practices are short. All right. When I created this, I know everybody's busy. Like I know that. So I tried to do it in a way that the practices are 15 minutes or less because I wanted to make it manageable. I wanted to be able, I didn't want it to be something that was going to be defeating for you. Like I wanted you to be like, okay, like even in my busy life, I can find 15 minutes to do this. And then for those of you that want to spend more time with the writing contemplation, you find 15 more minutes a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever works for you. And then the other thing I did, which people seem to be loving, is I audio recorded about 80%, maybe 90% of the practices that are in the book. And I give you, in the book, it has a web link, and I give you access to all the recordings. So instead of reading the practices, you can actually be guided using my voice. And then I video recorded the physical practices. So you have like everything there for you to just kind of really, I wanted to hold your hand through the process as much as I could. That was my way of doing that.
Wow. Well,
And all that is completely free.
That's amazing. You've done such a great job of striking that balance because, like, yeah, people are busy, but it's also why we need this so much. Self-work should take a little bit of time and effort, and nothing that we get in life is worth anything if, you don't put some skin in the game. So I think it's
agreed.
I think it's amazing that it's so practical, like we said, and there's the work that needs to be done. And it's nice that you're guiding people through that, but there is still the work that needs to be done. You mentioned this already, and I was already curious to ask you about it. Ritual. This book is very ritualistic, and I think about some of the activities in my life, like driving to the store for me is not a ritual. Starting a podcast, I'm very ritualistic on how I set things up and get everything ready. How do you think of ritual, and why is it such a big part of the book?
For me, ritual is a very big part of everything that I do that has meaning. And when I'm feeling disconnected from life, or I'm feeling disconnected from spirit, or I'm feeling disconnected from something bigger than I am, it is ritual that always tethers me back. And to me, ritual is anything that we do with our heart, that we do with devotion, that we are bringing our full presence to. So there is a practicality to ritual, right? The actual like, okay, I'm going to set these things up, or I'm going to show up and commit to doing this every day, right? That's creating this ritual of showing up every day. But then through that commitment, through that taking responsibility for whatever aspect of life, right? You're creating space and remembrance for the magic and the mystery and the meaning that is present, that in the craziness of life, right? In the busyness of life, in the chaos of life, that we forget. Right. So for me, ritual ties me back to heart. It ties me back to presence. It ties me back to magic. Right. And it also ties me back to responsibility and the power of choice. Right. That I have the power of choice, right, to show up and do something or not. Right. And that's how I can I don't like the word control, but that's the word that just came to mind. Like that's how I can control my circumstances, right? Like I know I woke up today and I didn't feel great. I know I can do my meditation. I know I can do my yoga. Or I can get on Instagram and I can scroll through there, right? Scrolling through Instagram is not a ritual. Sorry. Right? It's not done with devotion. It's not done with presence. We're completely disconnected. Right. And it's not reminding us of the magic and the mystery and the meaning of life. Right. But if I take one conscious breath with full meaning and presence, that does instantly. So I did make a little, I guess I don't actually know if it's called an acronym or not. I need to find out what the right name is. Like I took the word ritual and I gave each letter of the word a word. So I did R is for rituals help us to remember who we are, right? Through this process, right, of this repetition. And when the I stands for intention, right? There's an intentionality to what we're doing, right? The T they're transformative, right? When we're doing something with meaning, with intention, their impact is transformative. The U is for understanding, right? They help us to understand ourselves and understand maybe even the world around us. They awaken, the A is for awaken. We awaken our authentic power. And then the L stands for they activate the most powerful energy there is, which is love. So that was my little way of trying to describe how some of the ways that rituals can help us.
I love that. I'm so glad you did that. It's in part 1 of your book. Is that correct?
Correct. It's in the, yes, it is part 1.
That's great. Well,
Very good.
I absolutely thank you. I did actually read it. Even though it's for wild women, I still decided to.
You could change it to wild one.
Perfect. Perfect. And I do want to ask selfishly as a male, as a man, what things could I do as a man to help, the wild women in my life be who they are?
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful question. I think at the end of the day, it's holding space for the women in your life, right? To allowing them to show up as a grounding, stable, present energy that allows them to be who they are, right? That they don't feel like they need to fit in someone else's box. That, one of the big things that I've learned in my life that I tried to get across in the book is we are so many different things, right? We're not just one thing. Just like I thought my life was over because I thought the only thing I was this diver with this Olympic dream, right? But there's so many different facets of each person, not just women, of all beings, right? There's so many different facets of us. And we're so complex and so amazing and so magical. But we spend so much of our life hiding who we are, right? That we try suppressing and denying and compartmentalizing, because, this person can't know this about me. And if this person knew that, if this person saw this side of me, they would leave me and this and that. And really, my mission and the mission of the chakras in so many ways is like, no. Like our true power and essence comes from this full invitation to invite all of who I am, right? To participate. And all of who I am is really what represents the true power of me. And, I think to go back to your question is like holding that space so that I know, Casey, I can show up no matter how I am today. If I'm happy, if I'm sad, if I am angry, if I am whatever it might be, and there's nothing going to be wrong, right? You're going to be able to meet me where I'm at because, you're the one supposed to be like, I used to get this one all the time. I'm a very upbeat person and I smile a lot and I have a lot of energy. And but then I was labeled the happy one. And if I ever was not happy, like it was a problem, and that I took on a whole nother thing because of that. So I think the real thing is we want to create space in our lives and for people to be who they are. But I think actually the only way to do that is for us to truly do that within ourselves first.
I love that.
Sorry, that was a really long answer to get to that.
No, that was a great way to explain it. No, I really love and appreciate that you would ask that question. Now, again, 2021, gender's a little, different and hard to talk about, but I really appreciate you going there. I think that was a really valuable and meaningful answer. This has been an incredible conversation, Cristi. If you could give the listener one simple tip from this conversation to distill down and apply in their lives, what would that one thing be?
Go buy my book.
Great answer.
Oh, sorry.
That's a great answer. This book, I will cherish this book. I love how bright and colorful it is. It is very, very well done. It feels good in my hands to hold. So yes, go buy your book.
Thank you. You're so kind. And now you can see why in that place of rather darkness for me, like how this started to bring me back to life.
Wow. And just that you finished it in a pandemic when, so many people.
Yeah, I wrote the entire thing in the pandemic.
Amazing.
I haven't started writing it yet.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
I signed the book deal already.
That's amazing. Where so many
Yeah.
people were just like sitting around and complaining and, wishing that the world were different in some certain way. Like, I love talking to the people who went out and created something. They use that as an opportunity, and that has shown through in your work so well. And we just so much appreciate it. Cristi Christensen, where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
The best places, believe it or not, is Instagram, Cristi _ Christensen, and my website, CristiChristensen.com. I do also have a book website, but you can also get there from my personal website. So probably the easiest is just that. Yes.
Perfect.
And I share tons of free content, have lots of amazing stuff coming up for 2022. So excited to get back into the world beyond just the screen, even though I'm super grateful for technology to be able to still connect with people, but I can't wait to be in the live form on retreat and trainings all over the world. So please stay tuned and come play with me somewhere.
I love that. We will be sure to link to all of that in the show notes. Cristi Christensen, author of Chakra Rituals, Awakening the Wild Woman Within. Thank you so much for making such a beautiful book, for all of your journeys and persistence, and wanting to share this with the world in a way that's very beautiful and really pure. So thank you so very much. We're so grateful for you and your work and the time you took to be on our show today.
Oh, I'm so grateful for you and that you overcame that throat chakra block and started this podcast anyway.
Me too. Me too. It was a great way to talk to you, and I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.